What a beautiful day. I'm so glad we postponed from last week today. Beautiful sunny day. I'm glad we can all come out and gather. My name is Chad Perkey. I'm the Executive Director of the Myrtle Avenue Brooklyn Partnership, and we're so excited to see, thank you, call for applause. We're so excited to have everybody come out and join us. I mean, we haven't had an event, it feels like, in almost a year, so very excited to be here safely. Thank you everybody for wearing your masks. This is a project that I'm really just personally excited about. I remember when I started working here on Myrtle Avenue many years ago, and learning that Richard Wright had lived here on the block, and this is when he was here in Fort Greene is when he wrote most of his most prolific novel, Native Son. Just for me personally, I had discovered his writing and that novel in particular in college. And it was just an amazing piece of artwork for me, an amazing piece of writing. It does what so much great artwork does and great writing does. It transports us someplace else. It puts us in the perspective of somebody different from ourselves. It expands our horizons. And for me, it just was a very important piece of education for me in terms of what race means in America, how it affects us all so differently, and especially anti-Black racism in America, and the profound loss and missed opportunities that has created over the centuries. And unfortunately, that story is still relevant today. It's 81 years ago that the book was published. Actually, last week would have been the 81st anniversary of the book. So for me, his writing was really important for me personally, and I think that's probably shared with many of you in the crowd. I think it's shared with many in the neighborhood. So I'm just really excited that we can gather today to honor his legacy, honor him, and make his work in this community visible with a street sign, which we will get to eventually. But before we do that, or momentarily, I want to invite a few others to come up and share some remarks. And I'm going to pass off the mic. And actually, sorry, before I pass off the mic, I want to give some acknowledgments and big thank yous. Before you leave today, please feel free to say hello to the Brooklyn Public Library who joined us. If you need a library card, they have you covered. You can register for a free library card, which is very fitting since Richard Wright wrote most of Native Son, or a lot of Native Son, while he was sitting at the Walt Whitman branch of the library just a couple blocks away. So thank you for joining us. Also want to give a big thank you to all the residents on the block and across the neighborhood who signed the petition for the street co-naming to honor Richard Wright, and especially the Carlton Willoughby Block Association for all their support and gathering neighbors. And of course, and we'll hear from her later, but Majority Leader Laurie Cumbo, who helped usher this through City Council and get it approved. So with that, that is enough for me. I want to stop talking, and I'm going to pass the mic over to Carlton Avenue resident, Fort Greene resident, multi-hyphenate, artist, writer, everything. I'll let you fill in the blanks. Carl Hancock Crux.
So this is an incredible occasion. Several years ago, actually, the late Howard Pitch, who was also a part of the Fort Greene Block Association, and I talked a lot about Richard Wright, and we talked a lot about the fact that he lived at 175 Carlton Avenue and that there was no commemorative medallion. And we got in touch with Barbara Steen Spielvogel, who is the head of the Cultural Landmark Medallion Committee, to see that we could, have a marker. But but the history of it, and we erected it. We had a much smaller crowd then, and I'm so happy to see that it's a larger crowd here today. But for me, I think the genesis of beginning to think about Richard Wright and beginning to think about where he lived and what he did was when I was in school in France, and I remember really well. I used to keep notebooks about where famous people lived in Paris or whatever, and I tried to find the address where he lived, and then I went to the Père Lachaise, right, to see his grave, and I was a little disappointed that it was kind of under, you had to crouch down under some stairs to kind of see it, I wrote a poem then years ago called Richard Wright Lives Under the Stairs, because I thought that he deserved so much more. So here we are now. It is amazing. It is an amazing moment. I'm glad that Chad Perkey and I went to the meetings that we did go to and actually talked to the people about this important place and this important man and this important writer. And one of the things that I think I said very clearly was that my hope was that maybe, just maybe, little black and brown kids from the housing projects, for lack of a better word, who live right across the street or anywhere within their community, might walk down the street, look up, and see that Richard Wright lived here, and be aware that they too live here, and that they too belong to a legacy. So I'm really happy. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And we now, I think we have on to Laurie Cumbo. Is that correct? Yeah? Yes. We now pass it on to our wonderful. Oh, you're going to pass it on. Okay. Yeah. So I'm really happy that you're here, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Carl. And again, yes, thank you, Carl, for all of your help in getting this through this co-naming proposal through the community board, too. Thank you. And next up, and before I introduce the next speaker, I did just want to point out, so this photo of Richard Wright here, seen in 1939, this is when Wright would have lived on the block in 1938, 1939, if I remember correctly. So this is exactly what it would have looked like, maybe walking down this corner, maybe doing laundry behind us, who knows. But I thought it was great to find a photo from that era when he was here on the block. And next I want to introduce another multi-hyphenate artist, creative from Fort Greene, Derick, who's going to give us an original spoken word piece. I'll let you introduce.
Greetings, everybody. I think it's so important to be able to honor Richard Wright because I've always felt that he was an unsung writer. I learned about Richard Wright when I was in high school, and right after high school was when I moved to this neighborhood. And so we're talking over 28 years ago. And his legacy just resonates. What I'm going to do is highlight his haikus, because we hear about his novels, Native Son, Black Boy. But what I did was I chose to take his haikus, put them together in my own unique way, and add a little something to them. All right. Native Son, Native Son. I am nobody. A red sinking autumn sun took my name away. Soul stripped, black boy I am, black boy I am. Denied dignity. A falling petal strikes one floating on the pond. They both sink. You and me, humanity, I, a native son, exiled. My whisper is loud. Hear my story worldwide. From Fort Greene, Clinton Hills, Brooklyn to Patty, worldwide. Did someone call? Look over my shoulder. Massive spring mountains remind me of the hills that I had to conquer. Climb over and stand on top. The view what was in the distance that awaited me. Heaps of black cherries glittering, drops of rain in the evening sun. Bittersweet dark, tasted by a tongue devoured by unappreciated and unsung mouths. The green cockleburs caught in the thick woolly hair of the black boy sit in the crown of the undeclared prince. An autumn sunset, a buzzard sails slowly past, not flapping its wings. But you, native son, black boy, are ready to receive your birthright trials by fire of the struggles you saw as a phoenix, burning out its time in its own burning lonely candle. They watch faces just to see you as a traveler. Your right to write and leave legacies. You're Richard Wright. You're Richard Wright. Richard Wright. And on that note, I would like to thank everybody for coming and celebrate the legacy of Richard Wright. I want to also give a shout out to the magazine that I am part of, African Voices, who also is a neighborhood entity. We should all look to the corner and say, you know what? This is a proud moment, a legacy that can be looked upon for years and 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 decades to come. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, actually, yeah, I do have artwork. Oh, you just put me on the spot with artwork. Yes, at the Snap, he just asked me, did I have any artwork on display that's on the block? At the Snap Center, right down the block, in the window, there is a mural, one of the murals that I had executed some years ago. So that's some artwork that's on the block. And yes, thank you. Thank you, Myrtle Ave Association. Thank you.
Thanks, Derick. Thank you, Derick. Another round of applause. That was amazing. I'm excited to pass the microphone off to our majority leader, Laurie Cumbo, but before I do, and I know I acknowledged her at the top here, but I just want to do it again for thanking you for spearheading this co-naming through City Council, but not even just this co-naming. This is one of several that you've been doing during your tenure at the council and very recently too. And I just think it's so, I think we all agree, everyone that's here is probably here because we agree that our streets and our public spaces need to be more holistic and truthful and comprehensive in telling our history and the accomplishments of those, worthy, meritorious of recognition. And I think co-naming, street namings are a really important way to do that. And this is just one of several, like Betty Carter Park that I know you've been ushered through, and Ida B. Wells down the block near Flatbush, street named after her. So, in thanking you for this street co-name, I just want to say thank you in general for making this a priority across the district and across the neighborhood. So, without further ado, Laurie Cumbo.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Brooklyn. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's a celebration today, and I am really excited because part of what I wanted to do as your city council member was to continue to highlight the true story of Brooklyn, New York. What an incredible story we have here. And it's important, as was said earlier, for our young people to know that history. And I believe that we live forever when we say someone's name, when we have the ability to honor someone, when our children pick up the book Native Son or Black Boy. The legacy lives on and it continues to live on. So this is important. Some people said, why are we doing this co-naming? John Duke got back and forth with them on the internet about why it's important to do co-namings. But it is really important for us to continue to lift up our history and to lift up our voices. As you know, many of the streets here are not reflective of the true history of Brooklyn, New York. So it's important for our children to see faces and works of art that look just like them everywhere in the entire borough. So I was so proud to be able to do this today, as well as many other street co-naming. So to be here for Richard Wright, but last year to be there for Biggie Smalls, Christopher Wallace Way, to be able to do that, to make sure that we name streets such as, for writers such as Walt Whitman, just the other week, to continue to lift up the legacy of Betty Carter as well as Randy Weston, and so many others. It's critical that we tell this story. So I thank all of you here today. Let's continue to make sure that our children read incredible works of art that come right here from Brooklyn, New York. Let's continue to support our artists like Derick, who are doing phenomenal work. And I just wanted to acknowledge, it was so important to me to make sure that many of our literary organizations are here, like the Center for Fiction. Wanting to make sure, that's right. Wanting to make sure that New York Writers Coalition was here as well, and that they were also invited. And I really wanted to make sure that, you know, so many of our organizations, such as African Voices, that I was able to work with them to establish a permanent home on Lafayette Avenue. So it's critical that we preserve that history and that culture. So we came here to recognize, but we also came to do the unveiling. And for so many of our children, I'm excited for you to see what an unveiling looks like. Because for me, I wanted to make sure that our children participated in unveilings, street co-namings, ribbon-cutting ceremonies, groundbreaking ceremonies, and so many other things that are celebratory in our community. I know we are going through very challenging times, and so today is important because we need a little celebration in our lives, we need a little bit of upliftment, and we need to remind ourselves of some of the great works of art we could be reading while we are quarantining. And staying home way more often. So I thank Marv, I thank you so much, Chad, for working with us and putting this together. I thank Jason Herr on my team for making sure that this happened. And I hope that you all will join us next. The next 2 street co-namings we have coming up will be for the renaming. Right by Barclays, Times Plaza is going to be renamed the Ida B. Wells Plaza. We want to continue to show how, as Barclays Arena became the space for the Black Lives Matter movement, we need to honor that black woman who spoke up against lynchings so many years ago. And following that, the next one will be G2YUC Way. And that was probably the most challenging. It took almost 8 years of negotiations to get G2YUC across the finish line. But it happened because of the Black Lives Matter movement. So I definitely want to acknowledge that work, that the level of protest that people were doing, you still don't even recognize the things that it's able for us to usher in at this particular time. So I thank you for that. And we are actually going to cross the street to do this co-naming that we are going to celebrate and let the world know that we have great and magnificent creatives right here from Brooklyn, New York. It's something in the water, it's something special here, but people that come here go on to do incredible things. So let's go across the street and let's get ready to do this street co-naming.
So cool.